Residential Sales Comparison and Income Approaches. Chapter 9, Completing the Sales Comparison Approach, page 27. Check your understanding. This quiz has a total of 3 questions. There will be 1 question per page. You must achieve 66% to pass this quiz. Start quiz. Number 1. Fannie Mae expects an explanation when the net adjustments exceed blank percent and the gross adjustments exceed blank percent. A, 10% and 15%. B, 15% and 25%. C, 5% and 30%. Or D, there is no set number. Fuck, I can't remember this one. 10% or 15. I think recently they changed their original thing from like 10% net and I believe it was 25% gross. I think there's no set number nowadays, but I don't remember reading this part. I'm gonna go D, man. There's no set number because I think they changed it. I'm probably gonna get this one wrong. Number 2. Fannie Mae requires a sales history of the subject property for blank years and the comparable properties for blank years. A, 1 year and 1 year. B, 2 years and 1 year. C, 3 years and 1 year. Or D, 3 years and 3 years. I'm going to go C, 3 years for the subject and 1 year for the comparable. And lastly, number 3, Fannie Mae's Market Conditions Addendum is also known as Form A, 1004MC, B, 1004D, C, 1025, or D, 2090. I'm going to go A, 1004MC. Assessment completed. Finish. You passed. You got 100%. I'll be goddamn. Right on. Good job. So remember, number 1, Fannie Mae expects an explanation when the net adjustments exceed blank percent and the gross adjustments exceed blank percent. You guessed pretty much that there is no set number, and I think that's because I heard they changed it from the old requirements of like 10% for net adjustments and 25% for gross adjustments, and I guess it turns out to be correct. Number 2, Fannie Mae requires a sales history of the subject property for blank years and the comparable properties for blank years. You said 3 years for the subject and 1 year for the comps, and that is correct. And lastly, number 3, Fannie Mae's Market Conditions Addendum is also known as, you said 1004MC, and that is correct. Continue.
Residential Sales Comparison and Income Approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH9 Completing the Sales Comparison Approach. PG 28 Summary. Notes. Leave a comment. Summary. In this chapter, we covered filling out the rest of the Sales Comparison Approach section of the URAR and how we come to our indicated value by the Sales Comparison Approach. We began with general instructions on how to complete the URAR form and its required exhibits. Then we discussed selecting comparable sales. After entering sales information and making adjustments, the final steps are to calculate net adjustments and the final adjusted sale prices of the comparable sales. We discussed the importance of net and gross adjustments. The reporting of prior sales and guidance on property flipping was also covered. The final reconciliation process was discussed and illustrated, along with the summary of the sales comparison approach. A list of suggested addenda items was provided. Are you ready for another chapter ending quiz?
Oh, no.
Click here if you would like to open this chapter as a PDF, which you can then print or save to your device. Chapter 9. End of page. Chapter start. 57%.
Residential sales comparison and income approaches, Chapter 9, completing the sales comparison approach, page 29. Chapter 9, ending quiz. This quiz has a total of 6 questions. There will be 1 question per page. You must achieve 80% to pass this quiz. Start quiz. Number 1. Fannie Mae's Market Conditions Addendum is also known as Form A. 1004D, B. 1004MC, C. 1007, or D. 2090. I'm going to go B. 1004MC. Number 2. The illegal purchase and resale of property at an artificially inflated price usually requires collusion among the borrower, loan officer, and appraiser, with the victim being the lender or investor. Is the definition of A. Collusion, B. Subprime lending, C. Flipping, or D. Turnover? I'm going to go A. Collusion. Number 3. An appraisal for which of the following property types should not be reported on the URAR? A. Single unit residence, B. Manufactured home, C. Unit in a PUD, or D. Unit with accessory unit? I'm going to go D. Single unit with accessory unit. I think I feel like I miss this one all the time. I think I usually get it wrong when there's a condominium, because I think a condominium is a different form. It might be manufactured home too, though, because I think there's a different form for that. I might miss this one, but I'm gonna go on a guess and say manufactured home, just because I feel like I miss that one all the time with single unit with accessory unit. Number 4. An appraisal on which of the following property types should not be reported on the URAR? A. Single unit, B. Single unit with accessory apartment, C. Unit in a PUD, or D, unit in a condominium? I'm going to go D, unit in a condominium. And see, this is the one that always confuses me. I feel like I'm always missing. Number 5, Fannie Mae requires a sales history of the subject property for blank years and the comparable property for blank years. A, 1 year and 1 year. B, 2 years and 1 year. C, 3 years and 1 year. Or D, 3 years and 3 years. I'm going to go C, 3 years for the subject property and 1 year for the comparable properties. And lastly, number 6, which of these is one of the written report options identified by USPAP? A, restricted use report. B, appraisal report. C, limited report. Or D, letter opinion of value. I'm going to go it's either A or B. I'm leaning towards restricted use, but I feel like a curveball is appraisal report. Fuck it, I'm gonna go A, report, restricted use report. I might have failed this one, I'm not too sure. Assessment completed, finish. Fuck, I failed it, yo. Alright. You got a 66.7%, you needed 80% to pass. So remember, number 1, Fannie Mae's Market Conditions Addendum is also known as Form, you said 1004MC, that is correct. Number 2, the illegal purchase and resale of property at an artificially inflated price usually requires collusion among the borrower, loan officer, and appraiser, with the victim being the lender or investor, is the definition of, you said collusion, that's incorrect. The correct answer was flipping. That nasty practice is called flipping. It's not illegal to buy a property at a good price and sell it for a profit, only if it is artificially inflated. Number 3, an appraisal for which of the following property types should not be reported on the URAR? You said manufactured home, and that actually was correct. So I think it's because it's a different form, and they're referring to the 1004MC or the URAR. I think that's how it goes. Number 4, an appraisal on which of the following property types should not be reported on the URAR? You said unit in a condominium, and that is correct. See, you're correcting that. Condominium is a different form than the URAR or something like that. Number 5, Fannie Mae requires a sales history for the subject property for blank years and the comparable properties for blank years. You said 3 years for the subject and 1 for the comparables, and that is correct. Got it right again. Good. And number 6, which of these is one of the written report options identified by USPAP? You said restricted use report. That was incorrect. And just like you said, the number 2 option was appraisal report. So an appraisal report is one of the 2 current options under USPAP. Try again. Start quiz. Number 1, the Appraisal Standards Board has expressed the opinion that the level of information in the URAR report is consistent with A, a complete report, B, a limited report, C, an appraisal report, or D, a letter opinion of value. I'm gonna guess C, an appraisal report. Number 2, an appraisal for which of the following property types should not be reported on the URAR? A, single unit residence. B, manufactured home. C, unit in a PUD, planned urban development. Or D, single unit with accessory unit. I'm going to go B, manufactured home. Number 3, USPAP requires an appraisal report to be identified as one of the following types. A. Limited report. B. Restricted appraisal report. C. Complete report. Or D. A letter of opinion of value. Shit. USPAP requires an appraisal report be identified as one of the following types. Fuck it, I'm gonna go B, restricted appraisal report. I'm totally not sure on that one. I know it's not complete report and letter of opinion value. It's either restricted or limited. Number 4, in a comparable sale, the adjustments were plus 5,000, minus 3,000, plus 2,500, minus 4,500, and minus $2,000. How much is the gross adjustment? A, 0. B, minus 2,000. C, 17,000. Or D, 15,000. So this is the total amount of adjustment. So I'm going to get my calculator. I'm going to go 5,000 plus 3,000 plus 2,500 plus 4,500 and plus 2,000 equals 17,000. That's the total. That's the gross. So I'm going to go C, 17,000. Number 5, the sum of the positive and negative adjustments made to comparable sale price is the definition of A, point spread, B, gross adjustment, C, net adjustment, or D, adjusted value. I'm going to go net adjustment. I missed this one early on in the chapter, but sum means like whatever leads to the net adjustment. That's pretty much what it was. And lastly, number 6, Fannie Mae requires an interior floor drawing. A, on all new construction. B, for condominiums only. C, on all single-family appraisals. Or D, only if the floor plan is atypical or functionally obsolete. I'm going to go B, for condominiums only. Assessment completed again. Finish. You passed this time. You got an 83.3%. So remember, number 1, the Appraisal Standards Board has expressed the opinion that the level of information in a URAR report is consistent with. You said or guessed an appraisal report, and that was correct. Number 2, an appraisal for which of the following property types should not be reported on the URAR. You said manufactured home, and that was correct. Number 3, USPAP requires an appraisal report to be identified as one of the following types. You kind of guessed restricted appraisal report, and that was correct. Number 4, in a comparable sale, the adjustments were plus 5,000, minus 3,000, plus 2,500, minus 4,500, and minus 2,000. How much was the gross adjustment? You said $17,000, and that is correct. Number 5, the sum of the positive and negative adjustments made to a comparable sale price is the definition of. You said net adjustment, and that is correct. Good job. And number 6, Fannie Mae requires an interior floor drawing. You said for condominiums only, and go figure it, that was incorrect. The correct answer was only if the floor plan is atypical or functionally obsolete. What the fuck? For reals. Fannie Mae does not require an interior floor plan for each appraisal. They required only when there is a floor plan that is atypical or results in functional obsolescence. Holy shit, I don't remember reading that. Continue.
Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH10 economic principles and types of value. PG1 overview of Chapter 10. Notes. Leave a comment. Overview of Chapter 10. In this chapter, we start the second part of the course and begin our look at the income capitalization approach. We commence with examining the economic principles that have direct application in the valuation of income-producing properties. We will examine investor motivations as opposed to the motivations of typical home buyers. We will discuss the importance of the return on investment and the return of investment. There will be an extensive discussion of the various investment alternatives that are available to an investor. These investment options compete in the marketplace. Investors may choose to invest in money market certificates, CDs, stocks, bonds, or real estate. The distinctions between real estate and real property will be emphasized. 8 different kinds of value will be defined and illustrated. End of page. Chapter start. 57%. 57%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH10 economic principles and types of value. PG2 learning objectives for Chapter 10. Notes. Leave a comment. Learning objectives for Chapter 10. Upon completion of the chapter, the participants will be able to recognize pertinent economic principles that pertain to the income capitalization approach. Explain how these economic principles are involved in motivating an investor to purchase. Explain the relationship between investment types with regard to return on and return of investment and the liquidity of those investments. Summarize various definitions of value. End of page. Chapter start. 57%. 57%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH10 economic principles and types of value. PG3 Chapter 10 economic principles and types of value. Notes. Leave a comment. Chapter 10 economic principles and types of value. Real estate principles. There is no question that real estate, or any other kind of financial asset, has value if it is capable of producing income. You may buy a bond, or a certificate of deposit, CD, with the expectation that you will be receiving a return on your investment. In case of a bond or a CD, the return on your investment is the interest you receive. With real estate, the expectation of a return on the investment is much more complex because there are various component parts which contribute to the value of the property. It probably comes as no surprise, but the greater the quantity of the income generated by a real estate investment property, the greater the expectation of value. End of page. Chapter start. 57%. 57%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH10 economic principles and types of value. PG4 real estate principles. Notes. Leave a comment. Real estate principles. Real estate has two basic components, the land and the improvements. While each can be used to generate income, it is more typical for them to be combined and used to generate income. This income can be converted into value by several different methodologies, which will be discussed in the following chapters. The value of a property depends, in large part, upon the end user. An owner-occupant might be inclined to pay a higher price for a property than would an investor who intends to offer the property for rent in the open market. The decision to purchase by an owner/occupant is often an emotional one. It is based upon providing shelter for the family, owning property in a good area, and being close to the amenities which appeal to the owner and his family. Owners buy homes, investors buy houses. End of page. Chapter start. 57%. 57%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH10 economic principles and types of value. PG5 real estate investors. Notes. Leave a comment. Real estate investors. The decision to purchase by an investor is motivated more by the property's income-generating capabilities and the risks associated with receiving that income on a consistent basis. Would the property rent quickly if offered to the open market? Will it rent for enough to cover the mortgage payment, insurance, and other operating expenses, and still yield a monthly profit to the investor? How transient is the tenant market? Is there an oversupply of apartment units, and are the properties offering free rent or other incentives which would pull tenants away from a single-family residential property? The investor is willing to purchase a property only if they believe there is a reasonable expectation of the property generating cash flows in the future. In the appraisal process, this is known as the principle of anticipation. Let's look at some of the basic principles which apply to all kinds of real estate. The applications may have different emphases depending on the characteristics of the property. End of page. Chapter start. 57%. 58%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH10 economic principles and types of value. PG6 principle of anticipation. Notes. Leave a comment. Principle of anticipation. The principle of anticipation is defined in the Dictionary of Real Estate Appraisal, 6th edition, published by the Appraisal Institute, as the perception that value is created by the expectation of benefits to be derived in the future. This principle has its strongest application in the valuation of income-producing properties. Another definition of value is the present worth of future benefits. Just think of it this way: if I lay all that money on the line and take on all those risks, it's because I expect to reap financial benefits from ownership over a specified time period. End of page. Chapter start. 58%.